All right, welcome back to another edition of Baseball for Maniacs. Now, there have been a couple of signings that we're going to get to, but the biggest news of them all, Owen, we predicted it in the last episode that we did when we talked about the WBC, but it finally happened. Bryce Harper has committed to be Team USA's first baseman.
Man, so in 23, he was obviously still recovering from Tommy John, so he couldn't participate. And you just knew at some point Bryce had to compete for the United States. He's in 2020 he was talking about bringing it back to the Olympics. Obviously that hasn't happened yet, but man, just see Bryce in that USA across his chest back to when he was 16 playing for his country, and I can just imagine him against Japan off Shohei Ohtani getting revenge for the NLDS. Still doesn't compare because Phillies are still number one, but man, I'm pumped, and it just is another addition to the WBC team to where this is the squad. This is our version of the dream team, and it's time to go win a championship.
Now, I do have to admit something, and Owen caught me in it. I did get MLB on Faxed recently.
Dude, that was awesome. So you sent me that, and what was your caption? It was like,
We got our Wayno.
so I was like, wait a minute, there's no way, because it was Justin Verlander in it, or like some other bum was gonna like just join the team and take innings away from Scooble, Webb, or even Nolan McLean, and then I see MLB Facts, I'm like, oh, they got my guy. It
Yeah,
happened, dude.
it's like getting centelled. But,
Yeah,
it's like with Bryce being on Team USA, we already know how intense of a player Bryce Harper is. We already know how he gets when something is on the line. And to be completely honest, I'm not entirely sure what more could be on the line than bragging rights as the best team in the world. Obviously, he's focused on the World Series and he's focused on getting Philadelphia back there, but maybe this level of intensity can kind of carry over for Bryce into the regular season, and then he could just bring that Team USA fire mentality back the way that Trey tried to a couple seasons ago, the way that JT tried to a couple of seasons ago. Those guys are great. Those guys were leaders on that team, but Bryce is just different. I really do think it's the intensity about it, the way that he just cares. He cares so much about the game. He wants it to be America's pastime. I could see him belting one out of the stadium and him not even rounding first base, just taking 25 seconds to scream into the first base dugout, and I'm all for it.
and then let me go on the miniest tyrant because we have a lot to get into. If these Philadelphia Phillies fans that are bashing Bryce Harper don't stop after one singular bad postseason against the Dodgers, he is one of, if not the best postseason performer of all time based on stats. He had 4 bad games. Bryce Harper is going to do in the WBC what we just talked about. He's going to take it into the regular season. He's going to win an MVP. Probably not because Shohei's literally Jesus with baseball cleats, but he's beat us. So like, let's cut out the Bryce Harper nonsense. But yeah, dude, I'm stoked for him to join Team USA, as you are.
And now, speaking on the regular season, we're around that time of the year. We're a little bit in the lull period. We're about 6 weeks away from pitchers and catchers reporting, maybe 8 weeks or so.
Up
Se-
7 weeks.
7 weeks. And now it's around that time where a lot of people start doing their way too early Major League Baseball regular season predictions. And oh, and there's been a couple of signings specifically for playoff teams that really have a lot of implications. There's honestly a couple of teams that missed the playoffs that have been really active, but the one in particular that I would like to discuss and where they're going to go in the regular season is the Toronto Blue Jays because they made a huge splash really early with a guy that you and I are incredibly indifferent on in Dylan Cease. 7 years, 210. What do you think that means for the Blue Jays specifically going into the regular season?
So I just think after that heartbreaking loss, the ownership, they're pissed, dude. And one, it's losing to the Dodgers, but it's also just seeing the kind of revenue a World Series run brings in, the energy in Toronto. And we both kind of scoffed at the 7 years, 210, which is really 7 years, 184 with the deferrals. But I commend them because they wanted to go get their guy. They got their guy, and they're continuing to make signings. Tyler Rogers got 3 years, which is kind of insane. But when you want your guy, you go get him. and I think they're all in on Tucker. I think they're all in on Bobichet. I think right now they're the best team in the American League. You could make an argument for Seattle, um, Boston if they ever get their head out of their ass. You'll talk
Mm.
on that for this episode. But I really think it just puts them in prime position to go back to the World Series and win it. And these are the owners that me and Ryan like applaud, because if every owner was like the Toronto Blue Jays, granted, we know not every team has money like the Blue Jays do. The Blue Jays own the Rogers TV or something. They have a shit ton of money. Um, but they're going out, they're making moves, and they're putting themselves in prime contention to go win a World Series.
Yeah, it honestly scares me a little bit because, like you said, the Red Sox have been so far in la la land that we've been completely blind to every team in the division pretty much improving. The only team that I could say hasn't necessarily improved would be Tampa because they've just kind of been fire selling everybody. But if we're going to continue on this AL East tangent right here, we can go into Baltimore and the moves that they've made. Now, granted, they're not these giant, massive moves unless you want to talk about Pete Alonso. That's probably the biggest move of the offseason if your name's not Kyle Tucker or Kyle Schwarber. Uh,
Yeah.
he was the number one guy on the market for a lot of these teams, including the Red Sox. Maybe even the Phillies had something to do with the Pete Alonso experience. But either way, he's in Baltimore now, along with Ryan Helsley, who is more than determined to bounce back after the absolute shit show we saw at Citi Field when he got traded over there. I know you enjoyed it, but
What it was for those, 8 weeks where he just could not figure it out.
yeah, and that really put the Mets. It helped the Mets miss the playoffs.
And then we'll get into that later of how Ryan Helsley might have just broken up the entire Mets core, and I could not be happier about it.
Yeah, but honestly, this might be a bit of a hot take. But I mean, we just talked about the Blue Jays potentially even being the best team in the American League. But the AL East, if it's one thing, it's scrappy. There's always three teams fighting for a first place spot. We saw it last year with Toronto, New York, and Boston. And I hate to say it, it's probably going to be a first place fight between Toronto, New York, and Baltimore. I think Baltimore's going to shock a lot of people this year.
Yeah, I think Baltimore's really good. I think they need one more frontline pitcher, whether they go get Fram or whether they go get Ranger Suarez. Um, but shows their ownership was not happy with how they performed last year, and I think it was like a make or break offseason to where like obviously the core is not aging, they're still young, but they're in their window to win. So the ownership had to be like, okay, let's help out guys like Gunnar, Colton Cowser, Jackson Holiday, but they need it more. I think they still need pitching. Now they got Boz from Tampa Bay, which was a good move, but I think the AL East, I think Boston's still going to do more. We'll get to that, but I think Boston, Baltimore, as much as you hate the Yankees, they're still going to win 90 games. They're still going to be in the hunt for the AL East, and I think it's no doubt that the AL East is the best division in baseball.
Yeah, it's been the best division in baseball for a long time, honestly, when you think about it. Like even when the Red Sox had Mookie, like there was still back in those days that the top three were always Tampa, New York, and Boston. 'Cause that's when Tampa was on their god tier Moneyball run.
Yeah, dude, 2022 was a fever dream when they won like 14 straight games to start the season.
Do you know how good of a team you have to be to make Brett Phillips look like he could be like an all-star?
Oh man, when he hit that against Kenley in the 2020 World Series, that's an
Mm-hmm.
all-time. Even though there was like 10,000 fans in Globe Life, that you just love a team like that. And even though the Rays, like you said, are selling off their pieces, I think two things with the Rays. One, this is probably the best time for them to be selling off because the AL East is so stacked. Similar to when the Nationals were just awful in like '07, '08, '09. But once the Phillies run ended and the Braves weren't that good, the Mets weren't that good, the Nationals kind of ran the NL East for like 5, 6 years with all those division titles. That could be the same case for the Rays when the Red Sox get old, when the Orioles get old, when the Yankees maybe get old, because they're always in contention. But I like what the Rays are doing, and the Ray way is a fact. They know what they're doing, so it's not the worst time to be kind of like the worst team in the AL East.
Not really, and it's not like they traded away all their pieces. They still have McClanahan, who's going to be coming back off of an injury, who's an absolute stud. I hate facing Shane McClanahan. He scares me. He's one of those lefties where it's just like, oh, come on, him.
Yeah, I
And
think trade Yandy. But even if they keep Yandy, they could be competitive, dude. They always find pitchers. They always find position players that seem to have career years. So even though we're like saying the Rays are the last team they face, I could see them in like September fighting for a wild card spot.
I could see that as well. But here's a team that I don't think is even going to be sniffing wild card with the way that their off season and the way that this everything has been going for this team. You'll like this one. What are the Mets doing? We just saw the Jeff McNeil trade, and we haven't seen them bring back any piece. Edwin went to the Dodgers for 3 years, 69. We just talked about how they lost Helsley. Their big replacement guy is Devin Williams.
Yeah, so it's funny because it's like obviously the Mets needed a shakeup with how last year ended. And that core, besides that miracle run in 2024 that still gives me nightmares, Lindor, that core has accomplished nothing. But to get rid of your good player, like getting rid of McNeil, obviously that's a good decision. I think trading Brandon Nimmo was a good move, even though they got Simeon back, which is on a similar contract, but they don't have to pay the last 2 years. I think that's a good move. But let the best closer in baseball, Edwin Diaz, go and Pete Alonso. I don't get what they're doing. And replacing them with Jorge Polanco, I think Jorge Polanco is a good player, but him replacing Pete Alonso doesn't make much sense at all to me. Marcus Simeon's a good defender, but he's not the hitter he once was. I don't think he'll ever get back to that. And I think the Mets' big downfall, where's their pitching going to be? Are they going to rely on Nolan McLean, who is a stud? As much as I hate the Mets, he's a stud, also participating for the United States. Um, Jonah Tom, Brandon Sprout, Kodai Senga, who I don't know what happened to him last year. And I heard the rumor that they're waiting for next year's pitching class, which is kind of smart in the sense of like waiting to spend your money. But does that mean you're punting 2026, even though Steve Cohen says the payroll is going to be relatively similar to last year's, which was like 315 million? I don't know what they're doing, but I'm excited because it looks like they're crumbling right before our eyes.
I mean, if I had to guess, they're probably trying to be in the market for Tucker. They're probably trying to be in the market for maybe even Ketel Marte. Because, I mean, you could trade off some of those young pitchers that the Diamondbacks are desperate for, and then you could
Yeah,
solidify your middle infield. Because Ketel Marte and Francisco Lindor up the middle is terrifying. But it's like you said, when you don't have the pitching to protect that part of the lineup, like, yeah, your lineup could go out there and score 6, 7 runs a game. But if you have a pitching staff where your pitchers, starters are only going 4 to 5 innings, they give up 3, 4 runs, then you got to rely on your bullpen the rest of the way. You're not going to win many, many games. Like, I don't know if I'm in the minority with this. I don't like the whole opener system with some of the teams. I hate having a bullpen guy start a game for 2 innings and then the starter or your long reliever comes in for like 3 innings. I hate that. And I feel like that's where the Mets are going with their pitching. And outside of McLean, outside of Tong, like you said, and Sprout, I don't really know. I don't know if they're gonna try the race thing where it's like a next man up type situation, or if they're gonna dig deep and see if they could even trade for Scooble before they get him into free agency. Because you could do a sign and trade just like that. Because
yeah.
I feel like they're in on Scooble. They want Scooble. Scooble in New York makes sense. I'd rather him be on the Mets for obvious reasons, but Scooble makes sense in New York.
They have to go and get him because, like, I think Stearns is quite literally just adopting his Milwaukee Brewers mindset, which makes sense because it's successful. But when's the last time the Brewers won a World Series, Ryan? While, right? So it's like that opener crap. It may work in the regular season. The Brewers did a great job this year. They were the number one seed, and then they got swept by the Dodgers. This kind of mentality of trying to get the best value deal on pitching, it does not work if you want to go win a World Series. Now, if they go get Scooble, if they maybe sign a Frammer, then they're fine. Because I do like their offense. It's worse than last year, but their offense was good last year. But like you said, it was their pitching. Pitching is not the area you can cheap out on if you want to win a World Series. But I think Stearns is doing that, which is music to my freaking ears. Um, but I'm just as confused as I'm sure all Mets fans are, and it's a glorious sight to see.
I think that there's going to be a lot of discourse on social media when it comes to the Mets, especially with how passionate and loyal the Mets fan base can be. because I've
Yeah.
seen that there were the years when they just had David Wright and Jose Reyes when they were just winning 70 games a year, and then you had the DeGrom and Syndergaard years when you finally thought that you were gonna break through, and then you go to the World Series and then you lose to the Royals.
Yeah.
But it's like I feel like the Mets are trying to reclaim past glory. Like they haven't been the same since DeGrom left. They haven't been the same since they traded for Javi Baez. Like they've always kind of and Baez was good for them. That's the crazy thing.
He had a
Uh,
great like half run. Yeah.
yeah, but either way, like they seem to go after these big flashy guys, these big New York names, but some of these guys aren't made for New York. You had two great pitchers that were made for New York that you kind of just let walk for scraps in DeGrom and Syndergaard. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
I
Who did we get from the Mets?
You did get Noah Syndergaard.
No, Zach Wheeler. Oh
It
no,
was
Syndergaard. Got Zach Wheeler. They didn't
it
pay
was
Zach.
Zach. Dude, Zach Wheeler being on the Mets sounds. It's like I forgot about that. That feels like it was so long ago already.
Dude, because he peaked in Philly because they didn't want to pay him. I remember when he signed, people thought it was an overpay. It was the greatest free agent signing in Philly's history, similar to Bryce Harper. But I think Zach Wheeler's signing was much better.
And it just goes to show, like, could you imagine that three-headed monster if they kept the same when it would be Wheels, DeGrom, and Syndergaard?
Mm. That would be horrific for me as a Phillies fan. But it's like it just goes back to the point, man. If you have a good three, you can win in the playoffs. We've been talking about Pittsburgh. As much as I hate the Pirates, if they get into a playoff series, they can be competitive because pitching wins in October. Look what the Dodgers did.
Yeah, and the Dodgers just got even better. They really just got their end game guy. If you had one question about the Dodgers, it was their closer because they had so many pitching injuries. Whether you want to talk about Evan Phillips, Blake Trinan, I could probably I could probably have a whole piece of paper on the amount of injuries that the Dodgers had this year in pitching, and they still won the World Series.
Blake Trinan gives me nightmares. You want to know why?
I would love
Who
to.
up for the Dodgers in Game 4 of the NLDS before the Kirkering thing? It was
What
Blake Trinan. He was coming in to pitch the 12th. If that happens, we're World Series champions. But whatever, dude. That's the past. We're looking at 2026. But yeah, man.
But yeah, let's actually talk about 2026 because it seems like the Phillies are looking towards the future, but they also have no problem with running it back yet again. You might be missing Ranger. You're most definitely going to be missing Nikki. Uh, I
Um,
just but either way, it's this. You might be missing JT even with how his off season's been going, but it's like wh- I don't know where even the Phillies' head is because the Braves are going to come back with a vengeance. They're going to be healthy. They're going to be huge players going on in that division. I would love to see the Phillies run it back. If I had a second favorite team, it would be the Philadelphia Phillies. But I don't know how I feel with them running it back with the same core yet again.
so that's been the discourse, like with Phillies baseball with fans. It's like, oh, we're running it back. We're running it back. And I get their sentiment. We've lost in the playoffs 4 straight years. But you really have to understand running it back is not the worst thing if those players are still performing at an elite rate. Like bringing Kyle Schwarber back, you weren't going to sign anyone better than him besides Kyle Tucker, and the Phillies aren't going to shell out a 12-year deal similar to the other teams with Kyle Tucker that don't want to give him that deal. So signing Kyle is not the worst thing in the world. Trey Turner's locked up for the next 8 years. Bryce is 7 years. I mean, sometimes you just keep going at it and seeing if you can get hot in the playoffs. But the running it back thing, I think, is going to be if we re-sign JT, that's going to seem like we're running it back. Now, I've heard a lot of stuff with JT. I'm at the point, let him walk. I don't know if these reports are true or not, but he was apparently frustrated with how he was treated in his original contract negotiations when he signed that 5-year deal. I don't know if that's his agent pewing stuff out, but I'm at the point, dude. Just let him walk. Use that extra money. I broke it down in my Matt Strom trade podcast to where I think they're shelling money to go after a big name like Bo Bichette or Alex Bregman. Now, if we get one of those guys, we're most certainly not running it back. But JT, man, I'm so fine with letting a 35-year-old walk, especially if he's gonna like ask for a 3-year deal at 15 AAV. I'm done with JT. Like if he was gonna come back on a 2 year deal, of course. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm more just in the mindset of let's go get Alex Bregman or Bo Bichette.
You've been trolling me with this Alex Bregman stuff, and I'm gonna ask you politely to stop it. But
Uh,
either way,
It's common, dude.
but the thing is with JT and a lot of these older guys get into their age 33, age 34, age 35 type seasons, they want security in a couple of these contracts. And a lot of these guys don't realize that their play is going down because of their
Mhm.
age. You look at a guy like JT, who was arguably the best catcher in baseball for the past, what, 7, 8 years, probably?
Yeah,
Like, it was him and Yachty. And then Yachty retired. And then it's been, JT's been number one. And it's just,
yeah. Him and Will Smith have been kind of going at it. I think the last 2 years. I think once 2024 hit, he lost the mantle of the best catcher in baseball, but he was still clearly top five. And now I think he's like top 10, maybe top five still, but he's not worth a 3 year deal. And my thought of the way he's acting like this, maybe he does have that 3 year offer somewhere else. But if that's the case, dude, just go take that. Like at some point, show his cojones to be like, what we're going to give you. You don't accept this by this date. We're going to go make another signing. So here's the offer, which I feel like I've heard there's an offer on the table for 2 weeks. Dave Dombrowski needs to be like, this is the final offer and really make him show, okay, go to Pittsburgh, go to Miami, go get your money. But dude, I'm completely fine with letting JT walk.
see, I feel like that's gonna be a lot of, like, that's gonna be a 50-50 split in a lot of the Phillies talks. I feel a lot of people love JT Realmuto. I remember when you guys traded for JT, and I thought you guys gave up too much because I was really, really high on Sixto. I thought Sixto was going to be up next. And I think you guys traded Jorge Alfaro too, which
Yeah.
I wasn't too big on Alfaro, but I like pop times. I like arm strength and catchers, and you can't deny Alfaro's defensive abilities, at least for a little bit when he was coming up as a prospect. I thought that you guys had given up just a smidge too much, but it just kind of goes to show that prospects don't always work out, especially when you're in the Marlins organization. But I mean, JT would fit tremendously back. Everybody would welcome him back. It wouldn't be like you sign him and you're like, why? It wouldn't be like that type of reaction. Like, I feel like he'd be welcomed back with open arms. But if he does go, it would probably be one of those things where it's like you have the take of let him go. He's old. We don't need to waste that much money on a 35-year-old bat. And then you have the guys that are like, he's been helping Zach Wheeler throw these gems. He doesn't throw these gems without the defensive mind of JT Realmuto behind the plate, which could be true. Catchers and pitchers, the battery is very, very, very important. But I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of confused on the JT situation. I almost thought it was a lock he was coming back.
Yeah, I did too. And here's my thing: if the alert comes in like right now on this podcast that he's signed for 3 years, 45, I'm not going to be upset. The only reason I'm upset is because I think it's JT or Bo or Bregman, and I think if you sign JT, you don't have enough money to sign. Now, if we were the Mets and we could sign everyone and money didn't matter, bring them all back, go get Bregman, go get Bichette, get them all. But that's just not the case. So my reasoning for wanting to let JT walk is because I think if you do, that opens up the door for Bregman or Bo Bichette. And then there's no Phillies fans that could say we ran it back. I just think dude, JT's just not the guy anymore. But if their mindset is, well, we're not going to get Bo or Bregman anyway, it has to be used somewhere, then you go bring back JT because there really isn't another option on the free agent market or trade market that's at his level. And that just shows you how weak the catching position is in Major League Baseball. But go get Bregman, go get Bo Bichette. JT, thank you for your services, but it's time to go win a World Series.
Now, you mentioned trades. Like you said, there's not that many free agents out there catching wise. If you were the Phillies and JT doesn't come back, I assume you're going to want to look for a trade partner to get at least a fringe catcher to get you over the hump. Maybe like a guy like Mitch Garver or somebody along the lines of even a Connor Wong. Like, who would you who would you like to see the Phillies go get in that situation if push comes to shove? You're obviously not going to go get a guy like Kyle Teal, and you're not going to go get a guy like Will Smith. But like, who would you like bottom rung last resort like Philly to trade for at bare minimum
Ryan Jeffers.
for Minnesota,
Just
right?
Yep, he's the guy. He's not going to wow you, but he hits decent enough. And then him with a combo of him and Marshawn. Marshawn's not going to hit. He's never going to hit, but he's a really good defensive catcher. And the thing with him is he's always had injury concerns up until this year. Now, granted, he only played like maybe 30 games, so it's really hard to get injured in those 30 games. But I love a Jeffers Marshawn duo. Who's that guy from Houston that is a free agent now? What's his name? Crap.
Diaz,
Not Diaz. I'm blanking on the name, but he's a free agent now. Starts with a V. Let me look it up real
Christian
quick.
Vasquez.
No. Let me see. Free agent catchers. Look at us. I should be more prepared for this, guys.
I'm not gonna lie. Whenever I think Houston catchers, I think Martin Maldonado.
Yeah,
Wait,
no.
Cartini? Victor Cartini? Is
Yeah,
that his name?
he's a free agent now. I'd like him because I think he had a 700 OPS, but he's more of a platoon guy. He like splits time, which is completely fine. I would like him, but like on the real trade market, I think the only big name is Adley Rutschman, and I don't want him just because I think the price is going to be too high. And I think Baltimore, but with Balsai, what's his name? Samuel.
Uh, yeah, Samuel Basaya.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to stick at the catching position. I think he's more of a first base slash DH combo. To where if I was Baltimore, and I think they're just going to keep him, to where if they put it out in trade rumors, the price is going to be too high. So I like Ryan Jeffers. I like the Vince, whatever guy you said from Houston,
Cartini.
um, Cartini. But I just think sometimes you just got to risk that position being a little worse than what it was to go get a Bregman or Bo Bichette because no one in Philadelphia will be mad if JT walks and you bring in Bo or Alex Bregman. Preferably Alex Bregman, as Ryan knows from the trolling. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where I think with the catching situation for Philly.
Now, I did a little bit of talking about trades when it came to Philadelphia, but there's apparently the hottest new trade destination in all of baseball because the Red Sox haven't made a single free agent signing still, ladies and gentlemen. However, we've been pretty active when it comes to movement, specifically with the Cardinals. There's a weird trend. We're just picking up a lot of the Cardinals scraps. And I don't know if it's Heim just sending us bad contracts, being like, screw you guys, you fired me. But we're also now in talks with St. Louis again for Brendan Donovan. And I'm seeing a lot of discourse, even because the Sox are out on the Ketel Marte thing, if you've read any reports of like big tears. But a lot of people are saying that they would even not prefer Donovan over Marte, but they wouldn't necessarily be upset about it either because Donovan's 4 years younger. And I don't know his contract situation. I don't know his control really. I haven't really put too much substance into the idea of Donovan becoming a Red Sox just yet. But the big move that we just made, and I'm a huge fan of this one, Wilson Contreras is on his way to Fenway. Now, we did give up Hunter Dobbins, who, I mean, cool. He came up and did his thing when we needed him to, when we were really injury ridden. I'm not heartbroken by it. He's going to be a stud in St. Louis. And if anybody who saw my TikTok, I talked about the other assets. I still don't even know their names. To hell with them. They answered the question at first base finally, but now we have more questions because, like, what do we do with Casas?
Yeah, I mean, I think he traded, but back on the Contreras trade, I think that's a slam dunk for you guys because he's going to be your first baseman, right? He's not a catcher anymore. He still
No,
had a on OPS last year, and that right-handed bat in Fenway Park is going to be a problem. And you harped on it with like the Hein Bloom thing. I think Hein Bloom is just getting all the people he drafted, bringing them back to the organization, and it makes sense for where the Cardinals are at. And I like what the Red Sox are doing in the trade market, but if they don't supplement it with either re-signing Bregman or getting, I don't know, Fram, I think they're good on pitching, but they need to spend some money to make these trades worth it for them to be a legit contender with teams like the Blue Jays, Baltimore, and the Yankees.
Yeah, no, it's like people are putting up these mock lineups before we even get any of these signings out. They got Meyer over at third base, and they're just assuming that we're getting Donovan, so they're putting Donovan at second, which keeps Sadon in the outfield. Everybody keeps saying Jaron's gone because a lot of these mock lineups don't even have Jaron in the outfield. Which again,
Yes.
big sad, but you got to do what you got to do. It's a business. You got to get rid of people to sometimes get better. But either way, I'd be sad to see Duran go. But you're 100% right on the free agency thing. I guess if anything, I would want us to go get another bullpen guy, just because you can't have enough bullpen. Like, there's no such thing as too much bullpen. And if you got really solid studs behind or in front of a guy, I should say, in front of a Aroldis Chapman, and if he has even half of the season that he had this past year, we're gonna be fine. But it does come down to getting back Bregman. It comes down to even being active in Bo Bichette talks. Because again, the Red Sox were the kings of interest. We're always interested in this guy. We're always very interested in this guy. And then they go to the Orioles. We're always in talks with this guy, and then they re sign in Philadelphia. We're always doing this, that, and then we trade for Sonny Gray, and then we still don't have the bat, and we let Rob Refsnyder walk and go to Seattle. Great signing, by the way. But
Oh yeah.
either way, I'm if you watched my solo pod about the state of the Red Sox offseason, I made my points, and then that same night we trade for Wilson Contreras. So maybe Craig's watching the videos, but if Craig is watching the videos, he knows how badly I want him to go out into the free agent market. Because I even wanted Michael King, and Michael King just re-upped in San Diego. Another great signing, I will say. I like Michael King. I like Michael King even when he was a Yankee. But I don't know where our heads at still off season wise. I would like another arm. I think we're good pitching wise because I like Crochet, Bayo, slot in Gray in that three hole. You could put Tolley or Early there in the four, and then Cutter, or you could even put Tolley in the four, Early in the five, and then Cutter could kind of be like the fringe starter guy if any of those guys get injured. Knock on wood, God forbid. But either way, we have we have the pieces. Tanner Houck's injured too. I forgot about Tanner, but either way, Craig, do something, man. Do something in the free agent market. It's us and the Rockies. The Rockies. The Rockies.
Yeah, I think it also might be a point to maybe ownership has literally said like we're just not going to spend that kind of money on the free agency. To where if that's the case, it puts Craig in a tough spot. To where if all he really has is the trades, you kind of have to give him credit. But we just never know what the mandate is from ownership.
Now,
So
if I may, I don't give a shit what John Henry has to say about spending money. He just sold the Penguins. You have a lot more money to put into your baseball team that has been way more successful than any of your other ventures in the sports world, John Henry. So, for the love of God, let the leash off of Craig. Let him give Cody Bellinger $400 million. Let him go give Kyle Tucker $500 million. Let him sign Framber so he can throw baseballs directly at Carlos Narvaez's mask when he's expecting a curveball. I don't care. Do something. Even if we win 60 games, you know what I'll be happy with? That we made a free agency splash.
gotcha, and I hope that happens for you, except for Alex.
It better be Bregman. Like, it may be solo podcasts for the near future if Bregman ends up being a Philly.
Oh man, could you imagine the podcast we have to do and I'm breaking down Bregman and you're one that'll be a solo pod. We're also going to invite you on to kind of just get your reactions because that would be a hilarious episode.
You would just call me and I would just scream into the phone. Like, I
Yeah,
would
I'll
not be
probably
in the condition to be on camera.
I'll do a solo pod and I'll just like guys, let me call Ryan real quick and he's just screaming at the top of his lungs.
Just getting the cops have been called. I'm getting 302. But
Yeah, we're gonna do it's gonna be a low pod for a little bit until Ryan gets out of prison.
he's looking at about, like, I don't know, 4 to 6. It depends on how much, like, I don't know what the statutes are in Jersey. I'm in Florida, but either way,
Yeah, it wouldn't be pretty.
no, not at all. But now we just talked about a couple more guys in free agency, like Alex Bregman and Bo Bichette. But we've seen a couple of signings, and we've seen a lot of money be sent around here, with whether it's been a lot more than expected or it's been a lot less than
Oh,
expected.
did Ryan cut off?
Oh, 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 am I back?
Let's give him some time to
Am
get
I back?
back.
Am I good? Am I
You
here?
there, Ryan?
I'm trying to be. Yo,
I think you cut off.
hold on. It's reconnecting. It's doing that
Can you
thing
hear
that
me?
it did last.
Perfect. Give it some time till Ryan comes back. We'll get into our next point.
It's saying it's reconnecting, but I don't know what's good.
Gotcha. So it looks like we lost Ryan. That happened last episode, I believe, when we did the pod together. But he should filter back in pretty soon. But basically, we're just going to talk about the free agents that are still out there and kind of where we predict they're going to go, kind of what their market is, because it is getting late in the winter. Anything after Christmas or New Year's, it's like kind of go time because you got about 6 or 7 weeks before spring training. First one, Belly. My opinion, I think he's just going to go back to the Yankees. They have not been active at all in the free agency market. They signed Ahmed Rosario. I think they brought back Paul Blackburn or whatever, but they have the money. I think Belly's going to go back to the Yankees. I think he's also a candidate for the Mets. They need a left fielder. Carson Bench is supposed to play center, but that's if he makes the team out of spring training. So I think he's going to go to any one of the New York teams. Tucker's the interesting one because I think there's only two teams in the market right now for Kyle Tucker. That's the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Blue Jays. I think he ultimately ends up with the Blue Jays. He gets that. Does that get Ryan back?
I am so sorry about that.
No worries. This seems like a running gag on the show, so it's going to be funny. But basically, I just went in on Belly, kind of where I predicted he would go. So just give me your thoughts on where you think Belly's going to go. I think he's going to one of the New York teams.
Boston, because I mean we just answered our question at first base, so he's not going to play first base. But I just want to see Craig do something. So Boston. No, but in all seriousness,
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, I think the hasn't spent it all the Yankees, so I just feel like he's the fit with them. I really think giving Trent Grisham that qualifying offer was a massive mistake. We talked about that when it happened. It's just Brian Cashman has done a terrible job in the last, I'd say, 10 years. So I think they're going to bring Belly back. And then I kind of started going in on Tucker, and I think it's either going to be Toronto or LA. I have him going back to the Blue Jays just because they're money hungry and they want to go get their guy. But I think if he doesn't get that long term deal, he signs with the Dodgers on like a short term deal.
yeah, I think LA is going to make the move. I think they're going to get him into that outfield. I think they're just going to try to solidify themselves and be the best team in baseball for the next 5 to 10 years. I don't see a world where Kyle Tucker's not in a Dodgers uniform, unfortunately, but it's bound to happen.
Yeah, I do think if he goes to the Dodgers, it's like on one of those short term deals, like a 3 year, a lot of AAV, but they give him an opt out. Because if they do give him an opt out and he has like an MVP type season, he will get that long term deal on in next year's free agency. And then Bregman. I'm not going to go too deep into it because we've been talking about it. I want Alex Bregman to be a Philly, but that really just comes down to if the Phillies are willing to pay that for him. I think other options are obviously re-signing with Boston. I think that's the most likely one, even for Roland Ryan. I do think he ends up back in Boston, but he could go to Detroit. I've heard rumblings about Arizona. That makes sense as well, especially if they trade Ketel Marte. But talk to me about Alex Bregman.
Bregman needs to be a Red Sox. There's no other way around it. I would love him back. If anybody's like a big social media watcher, he just changed his profile picture back to him in a Red Sox All Stars uniform. So maybe that means something. But I wouldn't. I'd be upset, but Philly makes sense. I'd like to see him go there because at least he'd be going to a successful team that's on the cusp. That's been on the cusp for the past like 4 years. And I think getting a guy like Bregman kind of puts them over that hump of being a what if and makes them more back into the line of a contender. Detroit makes sense. They need another vet. I think they're right there as well. You get Bregman there. Maybe Scooble doesn't walk. Who knows? But Bregman's leadership and Bregman's overall vibe just fits Fenway. And now getting a lineup with Wilson Contreras and Alex Bregman just beating up the Green Monster, I need that big time.
Yeah, and I think that's probably most likely what happened. Next guy, Ranger. I don't. I think the only way he comes back to Philly is if his market just completely goes away, and people are concerned with not only the injury history with his back, but his velocity going down. I think it'd be like a 3-year deal with an opt out after one. But realistically, I see Ranger just signing with the Cubs or Baltimore. They need another pitcher, and he makes sense for both of them.
I don't want him in Baltimore, but that really does make sense because he becomes their ace already. He becomes their number. I mean, honestly, I think he's better than Rodgers in my opinion. Even though Rodgers just had a fantastic season, I think that Rangers just that much better. Maybe I'm crazy. Baltimore fans roast me if I am, but I think he becomes that team's ace. I think if it's a 1A 1B situation, sure, I think they'll be more than fine with that. I I still want to see him go to Texas just because I think that's funny. But the Cubs make sense because I've made my take on Justin Steele. He's not an ace. Ranger becomes the number one guy there. Ranger, Shota, and Steele makes me a bit more worried than just Steele and Shota.
Yeah, and I mean, if Ranger puts together a full healthy season, he could easily win the Cy Young. In 2024, he was the front runner up until June when he got hurt. And that's the story on Ranger. He just can never throw a full season. But if you sign Ranger, I think you're going to get a good deal. Um, JT kind of already harped on it. I think he's leaving. I think he's going to get his 3rd-year deal, and I really think it's going to be either Pittsburgh or Miami. I don't really see anyone else in the market for him. Um, what do you think about JT?
I think he's gonna want to go to a contender at least. I don't want to see him go to New York, but maybe they could have a guy like him and Austin Wells as like a 1-2. Like they want Ben Rice at first. I know that, and you're not gonna keep putting Ben
Yeah,
Rice behind the plate. That's not a good experiment. So I think having like a 1-2, not a platoon necessarily, but have Austin Wells back up JT for a season or two so he can get more in lines because Austin Wells is going to be a really good catcher for a long time. But I would, I guess I would just like to see him not start. And JT in Yankee Stadium versus the Red Sox doesn't scare me as much as Austin Wells in Yankee Stadium versus the Red Sox. JT's going to go to a contender,
yeah.
whether it's the Phillies or whether it's going to New York. But I think he's going to end up on somebody who's in a perennial playoff hunt.
You would think, but I don't know. All these reports, they're giving me like cause for concern. It's like, all right, dude, I get it, get your money, but it's also like, if you don't want to be in Philly, dude, just like let us know now. Don't play this waiting game with us. We have a championship to win. But I do like that fit with the Yankees. I think he would fit very well there. Fremer Valdez, dude, I have no idea where he's going. I don't. I think the market after he almost killed his catcher, kind of hurt it a little bit. Maybe Framber signs a short-term deal with a contender, like maybe the Mets. Um, I think the only team that would give him a long-term deal is the Angels, and I could so see Framber being a Los Angeles Angel.
We were wrong on Murakami going to the Angels, but Framber would.
Dude, wrong.
Everybody was wrong about Murakami.
2 years. Dude, I don't know what he must have done in Japan to like, because we thought he was going to get like a 5, 6, 7 year deal, and everyone thought that. And then it came like 3 days before his signing deadline. We're like, yeah, he has no market. And then I wake up, Murakami's a White Sox. That baffles me. I had no idea that was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Framber could go to the White Sox. Honestly, he could be their number one.
Yeah, yeah. I could.
That kind
Nah,
of makes
I
them.
think he's an angel.
It kind of makes them compete for the Central.
No, no shot, no shot. They're about 2, 3 years away. But maybe
All
the
right.
Central sucks, so maybe.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Both Centrals suck, which is why there's another team on the other side of the docket. Not the American League Central, the National League Central. I think you know where I'm going with this. because they've had a really quietly good offseason.
Oh God, the
Let's talk
freaking
about some of
Pirates,
the
dude.
additions. That's what we're doing. Let's talk about the additions. Gregory Soto, Jos Nixon Garcia, Brandon Lau, Jake Mangum, Mason Montgomery, and recently reported Ryan O'Hearn. The Pirates are
Yeah,
making
they're gonna win
moves,
the World
Owen.
Series, man. I'm
They're
so.
making moves.
The
Oh,
only
come
reason they're
on. Come
signing
on.
these freaking players is just so give them crap
I,
about spending under 100 million salary cap. The Pirates are frauds. They've always have been. But maybe Frammer's the one guy that's going to take that long-term deal and sign with Pittsburgh.
No, I'm tired of this. Pittsburgh will be a wild card team in the National League because of all of these little underrated signings. Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, Mitch Keller is a wild card winning pitching tandem. And then you get a guy in there like Ryan O'Hearn who just mashes, Jos Nixon Garcia from the Red Sox, who I personally love. And then you get Brandon Lau, who is a solidified power bat at second base. Who's a power bat at second base? I'll tell you who. Nobody. We haven't seen anybody like that since Jason Kipnis and Brian Dozier. Even if you want to throw Chase Utley in the mix of power hitting second basemen, we could do that all day. But the Pittsburgh Pirates are going to shock a lot of people. The Pittsburgh Pirates will get into the National League wild card. And you know what? They may even upset the Phillies.
I'll tell you what. If the Pirates make the playoffs, I will buy a custom Pirates jersey for Gregory Soto. Not going to happen.
I'm cool with
It's
that.
just not going to
I'm
happen.
cool.
But if they do, I'll eat my words on the website. Spending like 140 because that's how much custom made jerseys are. Because there's no way you can get a Gregory Soto jersey just on their team website. I will buy that. I will come on the podcast. I will eat my words. If the Pirates are a playoff team, you will catch me outside with a Gregory Soto Pittsburgh Pirates jersey on.
Clip that one. And I think that's a perfect way to end this edition
Oh, we're
of
gonna.
Baseball for Maniacs.
Yeah, this was fun. Everyone have a great Christmas. We'll be back sometime after Christmas. Maybe Tucker signed, maybe Frammer signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I might have to restructure that deal about the Gregory Soto thing. But regardless, if they make the playoffs, I'll buy.
All right, well, let's go Pirates. Everybody have a very safe Merry Christmas. Owen, you have a very safe Merry Christmas. And I will catch all of you and you on the next one. Hopefully, no connection problems.
All right, later, buddy.
Peace out, homie.